In Good to Great, Why Some Companies Make the Leap, and Others Don't, Jim Collins embarks on a meticulous journey to uncover what sets enduringly successful companies apart from merely good ones. Drawing on 5 years of research, performance data, and interviews with leaders, Collins identifies key patterns of organizational behavior that separate exceptional enterprises from the pack. But this is not a typical business book padded with buzzwords and vague generalizations. It reads like a compelling narrative that threads together data, philosophy, and deeply human insight, showing how greatness is a discipline, not an accident. The story begins with a bold question: can a good company become a great company, and if so, how? To answer that, Collins and his team scoured 1,435 established companies, narrowing them down to 11 that made the leap from long-term mediocrity to sustained greatness, as defined by a series of strict performance benchmarks. The study didn't focus on hot startups or overnight successes, it focused on companies that turned the corner and stayed great for at least 15 years. What emerged wasn't a miracle formula, but a set of practical, often surprising principles. One of the most powerful ideas is the concept of Level 5 leadership. Unlike the charismatic, ego-driven CEOs who often dominate headlines, Level 5 leaders are humble, quietly determined, and fiercely focused on the mission over their personal legacy. Collins introduces readers to Darwin Smith of Kimberly-Clark, a quiet and unassuming executive who led one of the most dramatic business transformations in modern history. Rather than drawing attention to himself, Smith made tough decisions, including selling the company's core paper mills, to reinvest in consumer products. His approach wasn't flashy, but it was strategic and grounded in conviction. Collins emphasizes that these great leaders blend personal humility with professional will. They're not meek, but they aren't showboats either. Their ego is channeled into the ambition of the organization rather than personal gain. The contrast between Level 5 leaders and the comparison company CEOs, many of whom were more flamboyant and short-term focused, is telling. The great companies weren't led by rock stars. They were led by deeply committed, mission-driven individuals willing to make hard calls without needing applause. Another core idea in the book is, first who, then what. Instead of setting a big vision and then hiring people to fulfill it, the best companies first get the right people on the bus, then figure out where to drive it. This principle flips conventional strategy on its head. Collins recounts how Wells Fargo, before its rise to greatness, focused obsessively on talent, getting the best team in place and shedding those who didn't fit the values and standards. By doing so, the company was able to navigate major industry changes with agility and insight. Collins stresses that great companies confront the brutal facts of their reality without losing faith that they will prevail in the end. This is what he calls the Stockdale paradox, named after Admiral James Stockdale, a Vietnam POW who survived unimaginable hardship. The great companies didn't sugarcoat challenges, they analyzed them with brutal honesty, but they also held on to an unwavering belief in eventual success. This paradoxical blend of realism and resilience became one of the most distinguishing characteristics of sustained greatness. Equally important is the hedgehog concept, inspired by the ancient parable of the fox and the hedgehog. While the fox knows many things, the hedgehog knows one big thing. Collins applies this to business by arguing that great companies focus deeply on the intersection of 3 circles: what they can be best in the world at, what they are deeply passionate about, and what drives their economic engine. When a company finds this focus, its hedgehog concept, it stops scattering its efforts and begins compounding success with disciplined clarity. The discipline theme runs strong throughout the book. Collins argues that greatness is not the result of a single, dramatic shift but of consistent, focused, and disciplined action over time. He introduces the concept of the flywheel, a heavy wheel that takes enormous effort to push at first, but once it gains momentum, it turns faster and faster, almost on its own. The great companies didn't rely on breakthroughs or big PR moves, they built momentum through thousands of small, well-executed decisions. He contrasts the flywheel with the doom loop, a cycle where companies lurch from one big initiative or leadership change to another, searching for a silver bullet. These companies often suffer from chronic inconsistency, lack of focus, and reactive leadership. Collins tells the story of comparison companies that, despite having similar resources, succumbed to the doom loop by chasing trends, changing strategy frequently, and promoting unqualified leaders. They never built momentum because they never stayed the course. Technology, surprisingly, doesn't play a central role in greatness. Collins points out that the great companies didn't use technology as a driver of transformation. Rather, they used it as an accelerator, once they were already on the right track. He uses the example of Nucor, a steel company that didn't rely on high-tech innovation to become great. Instead, it focused on operational excellence and a culture of discipline. When it did adopt new technology, it was to amplify already strong processes, not to magically fix broken ones. Another key differentiator is a culture of discipline. Collins found that great companies fostered environments where people took responsibility, followed through, and pushed for excellence, not because of micromanagement, but because they were intrinsically aligned with the company's purpose and standards. Discipline wasn't about bureaucracy or rigidity, it was about freedom within a framework. When you have the right people, doing the right things, for the right reasons, you don't need excessive rules. Greatness, in Collins's view, is not about what to do as much as what to stop doing. He introduces the concept of the stop doing list, a practice where companies rigorously identify activities that don't align with their hedgehog concept and cut them, no matter how comfortable or profitable they might be in the short term. This disciplined pruning allows greatness to emerge from focus and depth, rather than breadth and overstretching. The narrative is punctuated with vivid, data-backed contrasts between the great companies and their competitors. Collins shows how Fannie Mae soared while its peers faltered, not through luck, but through sustained strategic discipline and excellent leadership. He dives into case after case where the difference wasn't external conditions, often the companies faced the same markets and economic climates, but internal decisions, culture, and leadership. By the final chapters, the message becomes clear: greatness is not a function of circumstance, it is a matter of conscious choice and discipline. The companies that made the leap weren't the ones with the best marketing, biggest budgets, or luckiest breaks. They were the ones that committed to long-term excellence through methodical, values-driven leadership, constant reality checks, and focused execution. Good to Great ends not with a triumphant proclamation, but with a quiet, powerful reminder that greatness is available to almost any organization, but few will choose the path. It's not flashy. It's not quick. It demands humility, consistency, and belief. Through a seamless blend of storytelling, case study, and deeply practical insight, Collins offers more than just a business strategy. He offers a roadmap to sustain transformation, one that applies just as much to individuals as it does to companies.